This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Yom Tov of Sukkos, and the main place in the Torah.
You're going to give us.
Yeah. The main place in the Torah that speaks about the Yom Tov of Sukkos is Parshas Emor, and the end of Parshas Emor in Perek Chav Gimel. You have it on your sheets. We have a number of very interesting psukim. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Lemar. Daber el b'nei Yisrael Lemar. Speak to the b'nei Yisrael. B'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi hazeh. On the 15th day of this 7th month, Chag HaSukkos is the Yom Tov of Sukkos. Shivas Yomim Hashem. 7 days. What do you do on Sukkos? Vayem Arisha Mikra Kodesh Kom Lechaz Avodah Sasu. On the first day, it's a Mikra Kodesh. Shivas Yomim Takrivu Ishal Hashem. You bring karbanos for 7 days. And then again it says Bayim Hashmini Mikra Kodesh. And then it almost seems to end off the Yom Tov of Sukkot. It says in Pasuk Lamed Zayin, Eile Mayadei Hashem Asher Tikro Isam Mikra Kodesh. These are the Mayadim of Hashem. And we would expect this would be the end of the Yom Tov of Sukkot. We don't hear anything. In other words, this is all we need. This is all it says. It says, B'chamisha asar yom, on the 15th day, what do you do on Sukkot? Well, the first day is Mikra Kodesh. And the last day is Mikra Kodesh, and finished. And then all of a sudden, in Pasuk Lamed Tes, the Torah wakes up and says, oh, forgot to tell you. I forgot to tell you what you have to do on Sukkot. Oh, ach b'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi. On the 15th day of the 7th month, notice this time it doesn't say hazeh. Right in the beginning, Pasuk Lamed Dalet, it says v'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi hazeh. And this time it doesn't say v'chamisha asar yom lachodesh hashvi hazeh. It just says lachodesh hashvi. Bas b'chemes tvuas haaretz. By the way, tachoygu chag l'Hashem shivas yomim. What do you have to do? Bayom harishon shabbosin uvayom. We have something left out over here. Uvayim. Hashmini Shabbosin ulakachtem lachem bayim harishon pri'etz adar kapos tamarim anafetz aves arvei nachal. So here the Torah is telling us something very interesting. The Torah is almost waking up out of the blue moon after having told us all about the Yom Tov of Sukkos, completely forgetting to tell me about any of the mitzvahs that you have to do on Sukkos. And then all of a sudden at the end of the Parsha it says, oh, by the way, make sure you take your lulav and esrog. And then in Pasuk Mem Beis it says, Bas Sukkos teishu shivas yamim, kol ha'ezach v'yisrael yeshu b'Sukkos. Why is that? Why is that? In other words, we have to ask ourselves a number of questions over here. Number one, why is it that the first time it tells you the date of the Yom Tov of Sukkos, it says, B'chamisha asar lachodesh hashvi hazeh, and the second that's in Pasuk Lamed Dalet, and in Pasuk Lamed Tes it doesn't say hazeh, it just says lachodesh hashvi. And even more importantly, why does the Torah break up Sukkos into 2 parts? It gives you the date, it tells you you're not allowed to do malacha, it doesn't tell you anything about the Yom Tov, about the mitzvahs hayom, and then it tells you the date a second time. Why does it have to tell you the date twice? We already know the date. It already said in Pasuk Lamed Dalet. The date is the 15th day of the 7th month. Why does it have to repeat again in Pasuk Lamed Tes? And why the first time it doesn't say anything about the mitzvahs of the Chag, and the second time it does tell you about the mitzvahs of the Chag? I mean, what's going on? You don't have anything analogous to this by any of the other Yomim Tovim. Okay? And even more strange is if you take a look in your Chumashim, take a look in Parshas Emor, Perek Chav Gimel, Pasuk Hey. Okay, let's take a look at what it says by Rosh Hashanah in Pasuk Daled, in Pasuk Hey. B'chodesh harishon, in the first month, b'arba asar l'chodesh ben harabayim. That's by Pesach. Pesach l'Hashem. Yeah? It says it's Pesach. So first it says Pesach, and then it says Uv'chamisha asar yom l'chodesh hazeh chag hamatzos. First it tells you the mitzvah, and then it says, right? And then it says, in other words, first it tells you the mitzvah of the Chag, and then it tells you the Yisur Malacha. Or take a look at Pasuk Tes. It talks about the Omer. It tells you got to bring the Omer. And then it says, till you bring the Omer, Mimachas Hashavs Hashvias Tisbru Chamishim Yom. And then it says, in Pasuk Chav Gimel, Pasuk Chav Daled, Daber b'nei Yisrael Eimer b'chodesh Hashvi v'yachal ha'chodesh yilchem Shabbos in Zichron Shua. Okay, so let's take a look at Rosh Hashanah. It gives you the date. It tells you Rosh Hashanah is the day of blowing the shofar, and then it tells you Kol Malachas Avodah Laisasu. In other words, in terms of the order of operations, first it tells you the mitzvah of the Chag, and then it tells you the Yisur Malacha. Well, let's take a look at Yom Kippurim. It says Yom Kippurim. And then it says V'chol malacha lo yisasu. So first it tells you what you got to do, and then it tells you know how to do work. And when it comes to the Yom Tov of Sukkos, we have the exact opposite. What does it say about the Yom Tov of Sukkos in Pasuk Lamed Hey? Kol malachas avoda lo yisasu, and it doesn't say one word about any of the Yom Tovim until the very end of the Parsha. So these are three problems that we want to examine. Number one, why does the Torah break up Sukkos into two parts? It gives you the date, it tells you you're now do malacha, and then it gives you the date a second time, and it tells you about the mitzvahs of the Sukkah and the Da'an Mina. Why is it breaking it up? Number one. Number two, why the first time does it say Chodesh Hashvi Hazeh, and the second time it doesn't say Hazeh? And number three, why is it that first it tells you about the Yisur to do malacha, and then it tells you about the mitzvahs of the Yom Tov? Okay, let's take a look at some of these questions in number two. This is from the Sefer Shalom Rav on Sukkos. Hamisbainim b'psukim yitma ad mehira. If you take a look at the psukim that talk about the Yom Tov of Sukkos, you will wonder very quickly. In other words, you'll immediately be bothered by the following questions. Madua b'cholecha min hachagim ha'achirim mitzvahs Hashem mitzav Hashem esma sheish lasis b'chol chag b'chag. Why is it by all the other Yomim Tovim, first Hashem tells you what to do, b'Pesach nemer sheichol matzos, b'chag HaShavuos nemer she'akrivu bikurim, b'Rosh Hashanah yasu zichron shua, b'Yom HaKippurim yanus nafshei seichem. First it tells you what you got to do, b'Rak b'chag HaSukkos. But on Sukkos, the Torah does not say one word what you got to do on the Yom Tov. It doesn't mention anything about the Sukkah. Even in an allusion, even in a hint, the Torah does not say a word about the Daled Minim until the very, very end of the segment. The only thing the Psukim says, then it says, and then it almost ends, right? You think, you could go home. You think you could go to sleep. But it's Messiah. Right? That's like the closing line. You would think, after it says, you would think, you're finished for the day. Pasuk shenera kesikum ha'inyan. It's a pasuk that seems like a conclusion. Ad shenidmeh ki histaimu psukei hamayadim. It appears like the psukim of the mayadim have concluded. Only afterwards the Torah concludes. Afterwards the Torah goes back a new thing, right? And then it In other words, What is all of this verbosity? Why all of these words? Just say, on the 15th day, sit in the sukkah, take your dalet minim, and don't do malacha. No, the Torah has to say, on the 15th day of this month, don't do malacha. And by the way, Eila Mayadei Hashem. Now the Torah says, oh, I forgot to tell you about what Sukkot is all about. Ach b'chamisha asar l'chodesh hashvi, sit in the sukkah and take the dalet minim. Okay. So what's the answer to these questions? The answer is a very controversial answer. And this answer is offered by a great Gaon and a Darshan. His name was Rabbi Menachem Tzvi Taksen. And he offered the following answer. And that is like this. He wants to say that when Bnei Yisrael were in the Midbar for 40 years, they did not sit in the sukkah. Why? Because if the whole purpose of Sukkos is to commemorate that God protected us with the Anani HaKavod, you don't need to commemorate something that is presently happening. What are you going to sit in a sukkah to commemorate that? Why commemorate the Anani HaKavod? Why distract yourself from enjoying the actual Anani HaKavod? What are you going to do? You're going to sit in a booth to commemorate Anani HaKavod? Do Anani HaKavod over your head. Right? It wouldn't make any sense to sit in a booth commemorating Anani HaKavod when you have Anani HaKavod. So therefore, Rabbi Menachem Tzvi Taksen suggests that when Bnei Yisrael were in the Midbar for 40 years, they did not have to sit in the Sukkos.
Chodesh Tanoim. What they did. So he's taking on one side.
No, everyone agrees they sat in Sukkos. The question is, what are we commemorating?
Right.
So why would they need to sit in Sukkos?
He asked the question, what about the Abba Minim?
What about the dalet minim? So he says like this. They also did not take dalet minim in the Midbar. Why? Doesn't the Torah say very clearly? It says, Pasuk Lamites, Ach v'chamisha asayim l'chodesh hashvi, on the 15th day of the 7th month, be'as b'chem es tzvas haaretz, when you gather the produce of the land, tachaygus chagashim shivas yamim, u'lekachtem lachem. In other words, when do you take the dalet minim? When you gather the produce of the land. But hey, buddy, when you're in the Midbar, you haven't been in the land yet. You're still in the desert. So if you haven't gone into the land, the Torah is saying very clearly, the mitzvah of dalet minim does not apply. They have not yet be'as b'chem es tzvas haaretz. So therefore, suggests Rabbi Menachem Tzvi Taksen that when Bnei Yisrael were in the Midbar, guess what they did on Sukkos? Nothing at all. All they did was they refrained from work on the first day and on the 8th day. And they were happy. That's how you read the Psukim. Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemar. Daber Bnei Yisrael Lemar b'chamisha asar l'chodesh hashvi hazeh. When you're in the Midbar and it's this 7th month, in other words, now, right now. So what do you got to do? Chag HaSukkos Shivas Yamim L'Hashem. What's Sukkos? Bayom HaRishon Mikra Kodesh. The first day is Mikra Kodesh. Kam lechas avodah lo yisasu. Bring your karbanos for 7 days. On the 8th day is a Mikra Kodesh. Eile Mayadei Hashem. Go home, goodbye, go to sleep. You're finished with Sukkos. Don't worry about dalet minim. Don't worry about a sukkah. Don't worry about bee traps. Can you imagine? No bee traps. The whole Yom Tov.
So the question is,
No things dangling from the schach. No shlaks. They don't have to worry about the rain. They don't have to sit in the sukkah. They have Anani HaKavod. What do they do? Why would they commemorate Anani HaKavod? Or why would they commemorate Sukkos Mamish if they were sitting in Sukkos Mamish? So therefore, there was no Sukkos other than Isser Malacha and Karbanos. But says the Torah, but when you get into Eretz Yisrael and it's no longer Chodesh Hashvi Hazeh, once it becomes Chodesh Hashvi, and Be'as B'chem Esvas Haaretz, now you really got to celebrate. Now you have to take L'kachta M'chem Hayom HaRishon, Pri Eitz Hadar, Kapos Tamarim, Anaf Eitz Avos, Arvei Nachal, and Ba'asukos Teishvu Shivas Yamim. So Sukkos, as we know it, we did not celebrate until we got into Eretz Yisrael.
does the mitzvah, all these mitzvahs go on in Chutzlaris today?
Sure.
Why? We don't do all these other things that are required.
Well, we don't do Ba'as B'chem Tzuas Haaretz.
That's right.
That's just the trigger. Once we started gathering Tzuas Haaretz, you're chayiv in The same way we find by other mitzvahs. When you enter Eretz, it says, V'haya ki savayal ha'aretz. Right? The mitzvah is triggered once we got into Eretz Yisrael. However, once we got there, once we made it in, then we're good.
Truma.
Then
As long as we live in Eretz Yisrael. But if I live in Chutz La'aretz,
it depends. It depends if it's talei ba'aretz. If it's
besides that, I'm talking about this is like Abamino is sitting in a sukkah. Why should that go on? Why should that?
Because once we enter Eretz Yisrael, it's triggered. Once it was triggered, it's triggered for good. That's what Rav Menachem Tzvi Taksin is suggesting. The fact that the Torah breaks up Sukkos into two parts. Part A, the Torah says B'Chodesh Hashvi Hazeh. Part B is just B'Chodesh Hashvi. There are two chapters in the history of the Yom Tov of Sukkos. Chapter 1 is the 40 years in the Midbar. That during that period, all you had to do is refrain from work, bring your karbanos. Chapter 2 began Be'as B'chem Es Tzvas Haaretz. That's what he says. Take a look at number 2. Mikach shtei kushios elu, in the middle of the piece. Chidesh hagoyin v'hadarshan Rav Menachem Tzvi Taksin b'sifrei Or Torah. Chidesh gadol. He wants to advance a great chidush that kasher hayu b'nei Yisrael b'midbar, when the Jewish people were in the midbar, lo hayu tzrichim l'shavas b'sukkos. They didn't have to sit in sukkos. Sharei tam hayishiv b'sukkos l'zeichem asher yashu b'midbar b'sukkos sha'anani hakavod. The reason we sit in Sukkos is to commemorate Ananei HaKavod, like it says, L'man yedu dareisechem. So in the Midbar, you don't have to make a zecher to something that they were doing b'payal. What about the Dalan Minim? Kach gam l'gabe mitzvahs arba minim, sha'af hi lo naga b'midbar. He wants to say that they were not noyeg with the Dalan Minim in the Midbar either. Why? Sha'arei b'pasuk misbar b'mefurash. Because the pasuk says clearly, that this mitzvah was only applicable when they came into the land, like it says, so now we understand. The first time it talks about the 7th month, it says Chodesh Hashvi Hazeh, because the month that Klal Yisrael were in, the Midbar, they only had to do one thing, not do malacha, and they could bring karbanos. Once it became Chodesh Hashvi, that wasn't Chodesh Hashvi Hazeh, that is how the Yom Tov of Sukkos developed. Okay, that was the Chiddush of Rav Menachem Tzvi Taksin. So now here's where the fun part begins. There was a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yisrael Valitz, and he had the honor of being the Av Bezdin of Budapest. Right? He was a Av Bezdin of Budapest, and he eventually moved to Eretz Yisrael, and he writes to the Tzitz Eliezer. He wants to get the Tzitz Eliezer's opinion on this Vart. Can we say such a thing, that even though Hashem gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai, nevertheless, these two mitzvahs were not applicable until they came into Eretz Yisrael? Is this a correct presumption? So, the Tzitz Eliezer in Chelak Zayin, Siman Lamed Aleph, he writes the following. If you take a look on your sheets, Li Dinapshi Harav Agon Hanala Ma'oiz Migdal Chasido Prisha. Number 3, Kisar Torah, Marina Harav Yisrael Valatz Shlita, Rav Av Bezdin, Budapest. Ukeis Chayne B'pai Ir HaKodesh, Tibana Mesikainen, Achar Drishash Shalom Kvoid Tairascha Harama B'Yava V'Kavod. Okay. So the Tzitz Eliezer says, Lasis Utzanei Chafatzti, I want to do your will. V'chin Panisi Esatzim V'zeh. And therefore I turned to myself. You wanted to get my opinion on the following issue. Now, why does this Rabbi Yisrael Valitz want to get his opinion? Because Rabbi Yisrael Valitz wrote in a journal called Tel Tapios in Teves, Taf Reish Peiches, which is when... What year is that? 1928. Visham Hetik. Yeah. 28. Visham Hetik Misefer Artar. There, this whole vart is published in the name of Rav Menachem Tzvi Taksin. And if you take a look in the next column, that Rabbi Yisrael Valitz wrote this vart. Uchvay Tarasim Mehala Pershazeh. And Rabbi Salvat praises this comment. Because he writes, "May I Could you ask a major question? Could somebody please tell me? Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, "Tell Bnei Yisrael, ulakachtecha lachem hayim harishon pri etzader." Take the esrog, take the lulav, take the hadassim, take the aragos. Where in the world did the Bnei Yisrael get them from? What they had, in the Midbar, on Main Street, different booths of kids selling lulavim, hadassim, aravos. Where'd they get them from? You know what the answer is, Rabbi Sai? The answer is they didn't get them. They didn't have dal and minim in the Midbar. But this vart created great controversy. Why? V'alzeh kamu ma'irim neged kvoi terasai al shehevi yisoid lehistamich al hapirish shal hasefer hanal shuak shehavan aloymad v'midbar le'nesav le'asuk v'le'adal l'kichas dal minim. People had a hard time swallowing that in the Midbar the Klal Yisrael were not commanded to sit in the sukkah and to take the dal minim. People had a very difficult time accepting such a thing. And therefore this created great controversy. So, Rabbi Yisrael Valtz wanted to support this vart from the words of the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim. The Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim writes the following. You could take a look. Take a look in number 4. The Rambam writes in the Moreh Nevuchim. The Rambam is in Chelak Gimel, Parak Mem Gimel. The Rambam writes, "Ma'asher nirali," it would seem to me, "bi'arbas minim shabelulav." What's the inyan of the 4 minim in the lulav? Shehi simcha v'sasain. This is a celebration al yitziyasam min hamidbar. A celebration for the fact that they left the midbar. Shahaya loy makom zera. The midbar was not a place where anything could grow. Uteina. You couldn't get a fig over there, v'gefen. You couldn't get grapes, v'rimain. You couldn't get pomegranates, umaymayin, lishtos. And where did they enter? They entered el makom atzei perois unaharis. They entered a luscious country. And they entered a country flowing with rivers. Therefore, Hashem commanded them, lefikach nilkach lezikaroin. Therefore we take as a remembrance, lekach hana shebeperoseha. We take the most beautiful of fruits, uba'reach hatov, and the most fragrant of fruits, v'ha'olim hanoim, and the most beautiful leaves, v'gam hanoya shebeisvoseha, and the most beautiful of grasses, kolomer arvei nachal. In other words, the esrog is the most beautiful of fruits, and the hadassim are the most aromatic plants, and the lulav are the most beautiful leaves, and the aravos are the most beautiful grass. The arbas haminim halalu heim asher kolim shloisha dvarim. And these 4 minim include 3 aspects. Ha'echad, number 1, riboy mitziyas meretz Yisrael ba'isa ha'es, their abundant ability to find them in Eretz Yisrael. Anyone was able to attain them. So the Rambam seems to be saying very clearly, what's the inyan of the mitzvah of Dal Minim? It's a celebration of entering Eretz Yisrael. When they were in the Midbar, nothing grew. They couldn't get a fruit. They couldn't get a vegetable. They couldn't get anything that grew. And now they enter a lush country, a country that's fertile, a country that produces so many beautiful fruits and plants and trees. So by entering Eretz Yisrael and taking the Dal Minim, this is a celebration of their new existence. So isn't it pretty clear from the Rambam that they did not have Dal and Minim in the Midbar? If they had Dal and Minim in the Midbar, then how is taking the Dal and Minim a celebration of a new existence? It's not a new existence. They had it the whole time. Obviously, the Rambam seems to be saying that Dal and Minim was something that did not exist in the Midbar. It first became available when they came to Eretz Yisrael, and that's why we specifically take Dal and Minim to celebrate the entrance into Eretz Yisrael. So the Rambam seems to be saying very clearly, like this vart of Rav Menachem Tzvi Taksin, that what? That they did not take the Daled Minim in the Midbar. So the Shas Teshuvah Tzitz Eliezer writes, based on this, Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim says the following. Take a look at number 5. V'hinei divrei harambam b'tamoi v'nimukai zebar milelo. The words of the Rambam, the logic of the Rambam, are clear. That tzivoy halakichas dalen minim hayarak la'achar sheyavayu la'aretz. That the command and the ability to take the dalen minim was only once they came into Eretz Yisrael. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, I can't possibly imagine how anybody could question this promise. This is obvious. Both based on the Rambam's fundamental reason, which is Shehim Simcha B'Tseisam in Amidbar Al Makam Eilanos. The Rambam saying the reason for the Da'at Minim is to celebrate leaving a desolate area to a lush area. Harei Behedya, it's very clear. Shabim Farish Shamitzvah Ba Acharei Tseisam in Amidbar. The mitzvah only began to apply once they left the Midbar. So first of all, the Rambam's fundamental reason for the Da'at Minim is to celebrate their new existence. That's clear, they didn't have Da'at Minim. And number two, why does the Rambam say we specifically take these 4 species? Says the Rambam, because they're abundant in Eretz Yisrael. So isn't that clear that tzivoy only began once? I mean, if the reason, I have a question for you. Why did the Torah tell you to pick these 4 species? The Rambam says, you know why? Because these 4 species are abundantly available in Eretz Yisrael. So I have a question. So then why is Rebbeinu Shalom telling Moshe, tell Bnei Yisrael to take these 4 species now? It's not a good reason. It must be that the mitzvah only kicked in once they came into Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Rabbi Menachem Tzvi Valitz cites to defend this part that we're learning from. That's what Rabbi Yisrael Valitz quotes to defend this part. In other words, the Rambam is pretty clear that the Da'at Minim did not begin until what? Until we entered Eretz Yisrael. Okay. By the way, take a look. Let's turn over. The Menorahs Hamar. Menorahs Hamar is one of the early Sifrei Musar. The Menorahs Hamar also cites this Rambam. Take a look at number 6. The Menorahs Hamar, the Harav Hamoira. Who's the Rav Hamoira? Right, the Rambam, the Mar Nevuchim. Gila b'Sifrei HaNechbad. He reveals to us in his distinguished Sefer, Tam LeMitzvah Zais, the reason for this mitzvah, Kedei Lizkar Sheheviam Hashem Yisbarach, to remember that God brought them Mimakim She'ein Shampri Eretz, She'ein Shampri, from a place where there are no fruits. Right? Eretz Malecha, a salty land, an infertile land, Lo Teshav El Eretz Nachle Mayim Zavas Chalavash, V'al Kein Tzivil Kach Tzviyad Me'advar Machshum Shaba Eretz. So it says it Tzitz Eliezer. What do we see from the Menorahs Hamar? Number 1, he says in number 7, V'lan Manami Divrei HaMenorahs Hamar Tarti. We see 2 things. Number 1, if he is citing the Rambam, that means he holds of what the Rambam is saying. He's praising highly. Right? The highest praise if somebody says over your Torah. What could be a better praise? Right? Sometimes people tell you, Rabbi, nice Dvar Torah. Okay. But if somebody says, Rabbi, I said it over at the table, right? That's the highest praise. If somebody says it over, that's the greatest praise. So the Menorahs Hamar is citing the words of the Rambam. That's the greatest praise for what the Rambam is saying. That's the greatest haskama. And Shainis, and number 2, the Menorahs Hamar, look how he says over the Rambam. He's madgish, klibe mefurash, very clearly. Sheha mitzvah ba kedei lizgar shehi viam el eretz nachle mayim. It's in order to remember that God brought them. The sole purpose of the mitzvah is to remember that God brought them. This language that he brought them, mashma behedya shechalois ha-mitzvah al-haisa la'achar shehiviam. It is clearly mashma that this mitzvah did not kick in until he brought them. Because if the mitzvah is to commemorate that he brought them, if he didn't bring them yet, what are you commemorating? Okay. So the Tzitz Eliezer says that he likes this pshat so much, he's going to bring additional ammunition to support and uphold this perush. Again, what we're saying is that in the Midbar, you go home the night of Sukkos, your wife's going to ask you, Yankel, Beryl, did the Bnei Yisrael sit in the Sukkah in the Midbar? Did they take the Da'at Minim in the Midbar? You can say, no, they didn't. And the proof's in the pudding. Because the first time it says, V'chodesh hashvi hazeh, that's referring to when they were in the midbar. And when it says hazeh, does it say any of the mitzvahs? Doesn't say anything about the sukkah, doesn't say anything about the da'al minim. Then it goes back and gives you the date of Sukkos again. And there it doesn't say Chodesh Hashvi Hazeh, it just says Chodesh Hashvi. And then it tells you about the Dal and Minim and the Sukkah. Okay, so you're going to do really good. You're going to have a good Yom Tif. You're going to really impress your wife. And she's going to bring you out that great dessert that you're waiting for.
She calls me Beryl.
All right, she'll have to get that part straight. Now, the Tzitz Eliezer brings some additional ammunition. Number one, from the Abarbanel. The Abarbanel writes in Parshas Emor. Says the Abarbanel, why did Hashem command us to take Arvei Nachal, the willows? Says Abarbanel, the Arvei Nachal mibnei heyosam gedelim al hamayim, because they grow on water. Ulefi shelo hayu b'Mitzrayim, they didn't have the Arvei Nachal in Mitzrayim. The koshikein ba'midbar, they certainly didn't have it in the desert. Nachlei mayim ayonos utamas. In other words, what do you think when they were walking in the desert, where no animal could survive? All of a sudden, aravos started sprouting. L'kach tziva, therefore he commanded, k'sheyavayu el eretz nachlei mayim yismuchu ba'avosel. So therefore, the Abarbanel is saying clearly that at least the aravos they didn't have until they got into Eretz Yisrael. Now, if they didn't have the aravos, it's not going to do you any good to take a esrog without an arava. Therefore, there's another clear proof that the mitzvah did not begin yet until they got into Eretz Yisrael. Now, the Tzitz is looking number 9. He says, "Reizeh matzasi." Look what I found. Look what I got. Oid shnei migdalei mefarshim. Another 2 commentaries from mefarshim. They explain. Mada gam kein ketama yanal. Shel Rambam. Number 1 is the Sefer Tzedel Adarach from Rabbi Menachem Zarach.
The Rosh Hashanah.
Maybe. Okay, probably. Yeah, you're right. So the first one he quotes is Rabbi Menachem Zarach. And he says like this, the Arba Minim of the Lulav, he says when they left the Midbar and they came to a place, Zavas Chal V'Dvash, so to remember this, the Torah commanded them to take the beautiful produce of the land. So basically he's saying exactly what the Rambam says, and then Tzitz Eliezer quotes the Abarbanel to the effect of what we said, that the Daled Minim they did not take when they were in the Midbar. But so far, we've only brought proof, we only substantiated half of what we've been saying. Fine, right? We've proved they didn't take the Daled Minim in the Midbar. Like the Rambam says, that the purpose of the Daled Minim is to commemorate their entry into this fertile, lush land. But what about the Sukkah? Do we have any evidence regarding what Bnei Yisrael did with the Sukkah in the Midbar? So for this we come to the Beis Elokim. Beis Elokim was written by the Mabit. You go to Tzfas today, you'll see the kever of the Arizal and Rav Moshe Cordovero, and right there, right next to them, is the Mabit, Rav Moshe Mitrani. And he says the following. He wants to know, did the Bnei Yisrael sit in Sukkos in the Midbar? So he says like this. He starts with saying, you know what, maybe they did. Va'afilu mitzvah sukkah, even the mitzvah of sukkah, she remez lanane kavod, which is an allusion to the Anani HaKavod Shesichachu Aleim Kol Arbam Shana, that surrounded them for 40 years. Efshar Shahaisanoi Heges B'Midbar Midei Shana B'Shana. It's possible that it applied in the Midbar every year. Remez Masha'yahoiva B'Chal Shana Kula Shem B'Suchachim Anani HaKavod. In other words, yeah, maybe they did sit on the sukkah on Sukkos. Why? But they have Anani HaKavod. Yeah, but they have Anani HaKavod the whole year. By sitting specifically in the sukkah during Sukkos, that would focus their mind on a benefit that they currently have. The same way they the same way they celebrated with the matzah, they celebrated Shavuos, they celebrated with Sukkos. The same way Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov ate the matzah before they were taken out of Mitzrayim, so too, Klal Yisrael, they sat in a sukkah even while they were surrounded with Ananei HaKavod. However, the Beis Elokim does not conclude this way. If you take a look in the next paragraph, V'yafshar ki gam shechag hamatzos v'ashvus nagu b'midbar. Even though we will make the case that they ate the matzah and they celebrated Shavuos in the midbar, Chag ha-Sukkos le'inyin yeshiva b'sukkah lo yinagu. They did not sit in the sukkah on Sukkos. Why? Shaharei hayu mesuchach ma'ananei kavod. So you say, what's the problem? There's a halachic reason why you can't sit in the sukkah if you have Ananei HaKavod. It's a sukkah tachas sukkah. The Mishnah in Sukkah says if you have a sukkah tachas sukkah, sukkah agav sukkah, you're it's puzzle. Ve'ech yasu sukkah tachas sham sukkah. That's why the Torah says, Leman yedu, not you, not Leman yedu atem. Leman yedu doiroi seichem, that future generations should know. But you don't have to do anything to know. You know very well. Because you just look up into the sky, you see the Ananei HaKavod. It's not for you.
That's the reason that they say that they sat in the sukkah. One says al Ananei HaKavod.
Sukkos mamish.
Sukkos mamish.
Sukkos mamish.
What's
a real thing?
They actually sat in Sukkos.
Like you sit.
They sat in Sukkos. It was hot.
Why did they hold?
It's hot. It was hot. Like Yonah. I remember when...
but the Ananei HaKavod cooled them off.
Why they need it? So the Rekach says they sat in Sukkos in the war against Sichon v'Oig when the Ananei HaKavod had already departed at the end of the 40 years, not during the 40 years. Okay, but that's a big discussion. So therefore, the Beis Elokim says very clearly they do not sit in Sukkos on Sukkah in the Midbar. So says the Tzitz Eliezer number 11. That even though the Beis Elokim begins by saying that it's possible they did sit in Sukkos, but the way he understands the Beis Elokim is V'shuv chayzer by mizeh. The Beis Elokim is retracting, and he writes that it's possible they didn't. So 4 lines from the end, Harei shekvar Allah al kach leimer. It already entered the mind of the Beis Elokim to sit in midbar lo yinetztavo yeshiva b'sukkah gam al das hamabit. He's not just saying, and I got it to dik a reason. He's saying a halachic reason, because it would be a sukkah tachas sukkah. However, says the Tzitz Eliezer, let me tell you what you should not say. Okay, until now we were saying, Rabbi Isai, that why did Hashem command us specifically in the Daled Minim once we entered Eretz Yisrael? Because we're celebrating the entrance into Eretz Yisrael. The Daled Minim is a celebration of the entrance into Eretz Yisrael. Tzitz Eliezer says, why can't we just say very simply that you know why they didn't take the Daled Minim in the Midbar? Because they couldn't get them. There was no way to get them. There were esrog orchards in the Midbar. There were rivers growing with aravos coming at them. Where'd they get them from? It says it Tzitz Eliezer, no, that's not a question. You know why? Because Tosfos tells us in Masechta Chulin that when Bnei Yisrael were in the Midbar was fertile. It blossomed. In fact, that's what Tosfos says in Chulin. So if that's the case, we're not going to say that the reason they didn't take the Daled Minim is they couldn't get them. They could get them. But they didn't take them because the concept of Daled Minim is to celebrate the lushness of Eretz Yisrael. Not that they were unavailable in the Midbar. Tzitz Eliezer writes, Ulam, in the last piece, Ulam lavoi loicheach hadavar, to come and to try to prove delay netztavo b'dal min mikach hakosha. If you want to try to prove it because you're bothered by a question, where'd they get it from? This ain't a proof. Why not? Why is this not a proof? The Harei maybe the Mamarish Divrei HaTosfos and Chulin Shekoisvim the Shema Kishabo Yisrael Lamidbar Haya HaMidbar Matzniach. Tosfos says, you have it on your sheets in number 12, that when Bnei Yisrael came to the Midbar, the Midbar blossomed. Or we have in the Medrash in Shir Hashirim, the pasuk says, Shalachayach Pardes Rimainim, which teaches us, the Medrash says, the Be'er, through the well, many types of plants and growth and trees grew for them. How do we know this?
Miriam died.
Because from the time Miriam died and the Be'er stopped, they said, we don't have figs, we don't have dates, we don't have grapes. Why dafka do they wake up now? Because before Miriam died, they had all this stuff. Because this was not just a moving well, this was a moving well that irrigated and caused the midbar to sprout forth. Also, the Yalkut Shemini tells us that when Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, the mun fell, the slav came down, the Be'er brought up for them in every single shevet, it made its own river, and they drew forth from the Be'er, and they planted figs, pomegranates, grapes, and even apples. By the way, when the Gemara uses a lesson of apples, do you know what that's referring to? Masechta Tainis, it talks about tapuach. Tosfos says tapuach is an esrog. It's an esrog. Okay, so it could be the Daled Minim grew for them, or they could have gotten them from Ein Gedi. The Arabs could have brought them from Ein Gedi. Because we find in the Medrash, where did they get wine for the Nesachim? They got it from the Krumim of Ein Gedi. So it could be they got the Daled Minim from Ein Gedi also. But be it as it may, Tzitz Eliezer says, I am a big fan of what we learned today, and that is the reason why the Torah breaks up the Yom Tov of Sukkos into two parts. First it says, and it's talking about their stay in the Midbar. And in the Midbar, which mitzvahs do they have? No Daled Minim, no Sukkah. But then, not Hazeh. Once you enter Eretz Yisrael, then you have the Daled Minim, then you have the mitzvah of Sukkah. And that is why the Torah says, the mitzvah of Sukkah is so that future generations know. But the Dar in the Midbar, they didn't need a commemoration. They had the actual Anani HaKavod. They didn't need Hazecher. There's nothing better than the real thing. Okay, we'll break over here.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.